complet grad, film student, and now all you guys want is like an intro to classics video. You've asked me so nicely, so many times, but you know what you guys are getting? Classics based on your zodiac sign. Okay class, that is what we're doing today, and I'm gonna try not to drop my books. It's the only thing I ask of myself. Every one of these videos is just, Emma, just don't drop your books every time. Today I am using my knowledge of astrology, which every queer and bisexual woman just has, like just any sapphic woman will tell you. Just don't question it. I have gone through all of my library, and my library is very classics heavy, literary classics heavy, and classics heavy, so I have compiled a list. These are the ones that I think would suit you based on your zodiac sign. We're gonna go through this in order, and there are a lot of books here, so if I don't hurry this the fuck up, this is gonna be, yet again, a long ass video. But like, when was the last time I recorded something that like wasn't half an hour long? Minimum. We're gonna start with Aries. If you're new here, hello. This is my chart. Yeah. I am one other element, water, and it's in my Venus, and it's my Pisces. So I feel like that gives you a lot of context if you're into this kind of stuff. So yeah, we're gonna start with Aries. My recommendation, if you're an Aries, is the Iliad. If you're an Aries, this should be pretty fucking obvious. The dominant, oh my god, the main like traits. Here you are. Just pause that for a second. Okay, my suggestion for if you're an Aries is the Iliad. One of the foremost achievements in Western literature, Homer's Iliad tells the story of the darkest episode of the Trojan War. At its centre is Achilles, the greatest warrior champion of all the Greeks, and his refusal to fight after being humiliated by his leader Agamemnon. But when the Trojan Hector kills Achilles' close friend Patroclus, he storms back into a battle to take revenge, although knowing this will ensue his own early death. Interwoven with the tragic sequences of events are powerful and moving descriptions of the ebb and flow of battle and of a domestic world inside Troy's besieged city of Ilium, and the conflicts between the gods on Olympus as they argue over the fate of mortals. This, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, and the Bible are like the classics. There are so many references to all of these throughout the rest of literature that if you read these four, you will have a lot of your references covered, mainly in terms of if you're looking at the Western canon. So the Iliad is about war. It literally has the god Aries in it. A lot of chaos, a lot of just fighting and battle and high emotions, and it's an absolute personal favourite of mine, and really a very good place to start, and frankly almost a basic place to start if you're looking at classic. So I love this very dearly, but now we have to move on because there's so much to get through. Aries, angry and fight. Iliad, angry and fight. Achilles, angry and fight. Close friends. Next up, we have Taurus. This one took me a long time to actually figure out what I wanted. Some of these books I knew instantly who they were going to, but it took me a little while. But I personally think for Taurus, you get another one of my absolute favourites. Stendhal, The Charterhouse of Parma. The Charterhouse of Parma is a compelling novel of passion and daring, of prisons and heroic escape, of political chicanery and sublime personal courage. Set at the beginning of the 19th century amidst the golden landscapes of northern Italy, it traces the joyous but ill-starred amorous exploits of a handsome young aristocrat and of his incomparable Aunt Gina, her suitor, Prime Minister Mosca, and Celia, a heroine of ethereal beauty and earthly passion. They are rendered unforgettable by Stendhal's remarkable gift for psychological insight. Never before have the hearts of princes, ministers, courtiers, and women been depicted like this, read Balzac. Yes, you may be thinking this might be more suited to Virgos and Aquarius and stuff. It is romantic, but it is not romantic in the way that some of these other suggestions are, which in my opinion made them more appropriate. The highs and lows in this are not quite the same as the highs and lows in terms of emotionally speaking in the other books that I have to recommend. It is a little bit more steady, and it's a little bit more, in my opinion, reliable as something to be enjoyed. These are the Taurus traits. Okay, so I just think that this one is one that you can really get stuck into it. You'll really enjoy, in my opinion, the entire thing. I really enjoy the entire thing. This is for me. I love it so much. I'm a big fan of Stendhal. Apart from, the thing goes, or you love the Charterhouse of Parma and hate the red and the black, or you love the red and the black and you hate the Charterhouse of Parma. I hated the red and the black and I love this. This is absolutely one that will take you all over Europe in a very like romantic sort of feel. Really, really recommend this. It's just incredibly written, and the bluff is correct in terms of like psychological depth that the characters get. Even the women. It's absolutely one that if you haven't read it, you're missing out. There is one point where someone is scaling the side of a prison, like a tower, scaling the side of it, so you can't, if you have any inclinations towards the romantic, capital R, you can't go wrong with this. Next, we have Gemini, and I was quite pleased with this recommendation. I was like, this makes so much sense. This pretty much prompted this entire video. Also because one of you messaged me being like, you should do book recommendations based on people's favourite plants, and like, you all know my brand so well. I was so impressed with that video recommendation. I thought that was fantastic. But yes, Gemini. These are some Gemini traits. I spent too much time on co-star. For Gemini, my recommendation is Orlando. If you've watched the previous couple of my videos, you will know I am besotted with this book. It's Virginia Woolf. It is incredible. It is flat out amazing. It is, there's a very specific reason I need to do a new my favourite books video. Let me know if you would like that, because honey, the ranking has changed. Orlando is absolutely magnificent. Written for Virginia Woolf's intimate friend, the charismatic bisexual writer Werther Sackville-West, Orlando is a playful mock biography of a chameleon-like historical figure who changes sex and identity at will. First masculine, then feminine, Orlando begins life as a young 16th century nobleman, then gallops through the centuries to end up as a woman writer in Virginia Woolf's own time. Gemini symbol is the twins, so the fact that it's the same person but then two different sides, feminine and masculine, that kind of balance that you have, I thought this was an appropriate recommendation for you, especially with you guys being an air sign and being more intellectual. You cannot go wrong with this. Somebody recommended to me on one of my last videos that there is actually letters and diary extracts regarding Werther Sackville-West and Woolf and their relationship, so that's shot straight up my TBR. I'm sure that isn't a shock to nobody, but I just want to make sure you guys know that exists as well. Loads of you recommending The Waves, that you really loved that, so I will be reading more Woolf, don't you worry. But Gemini, in terms of kind of metamorphosis and being like two parts of the same person and that like reflective kind of element that you have to yourselves, Orlando. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to give Cancer this book or if I'm going to give Pisces this book. No, I'm going to give this to Cancer. So, Cancer, you guys, where is it? Where has it gone? Ah, you guys get Goethe, The Sorrows of Young Werther. Here are some Cancer traits. No, the spiteful one. You guys are known for being quite emotional. I'm never gonna tell one of you to calm down. That's just not gonna end well, is it? No. Cancers have a reputation for being hyper-emotional, temperamental and spiteful. I think this is a good fit. Be on your guard and take care not to fall in love. Visiting an idyllic German village, Werther, a sensitive and romantic young man, meets and falls in love with a sweet-natured Lotte. Although he realises Lotte is to marry Albert, he is unable to subdue his passion for her, and his infatuation torments him to a point of absolute despair. The first great confessional novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther, draws both on Goethe's own unrequited love for Charlotte Buff and the death of his friend Karl Wilhelm Jerusalem. This book was an immediate success and a cult rapidly grew around it. Yeah, that was not good, resulting in numerous imitations as well as violent criticisms and even suppression on the grounds of its apparent recommendation of suicide. Goethe's sensitive exploration of the mind of the young artist at odds with society and ill-equipped to cope with life is now considered the first great tragic novel of European literature. I studied this for class. I did a degree in comparative literature. This was one of these I'd never heard of until I'd studied it, so maybe this is a new one for you. It is romantic with a capital R and then some. Goethe is someone who's very well travelled and just one of these minds where you're just like, fuck. But as the blurb says, he falls in love with someone he cannot have. I mean, can you give spoilers for classics? Okay, I'm gonna add a spoiler because I feel like it's necessary context. You can skip it if you don't want to hear it. But his unrequited love does draw him to a point where he chooses to end his own life. And that actually spurred a whole load of copycat suicides, which is honestly nuts. And this is like the first time, like I think recorded thing that this has happened, that people realise this was a thing. If you have an emotional, passionate temperament, it is something that will hopefully, ideally move you deeply. The character does kind of do it, yeah, out of spite in a weird way. So an interesting one to read, potentially. A kind of romanticism that's slightly different from like English romanticism, or if you look at the English romantics who went to Italy, Byron, Shelley, or any of the romantics who came back the other way, such as Foscolo. We often consider Foscolo a reverse Byron. Foscolo came from Venice and ended up in England. Byron did the opposite. But this is less about the sublime and like the depth of other things. It's more self-centered and more looking inwards about what Werther can and cannot have. One that I don't see talked about very much anyway, least of all obviously on BookTube, I know. That's why you will listen to me talk apparently, but yeah, really recommend that, really rate that very much. Feelings. Next up we have Leos. Oh my dear Leos. I have quite a lot of friends who are Leos. I have a Leo moon. What a shock! But for you guys, my recommendation is The Art of Rhetoric, because God knows you guys won't shut the fuck up. Like, have you ever met a Leo that will actually stop talking? No. No. You all want to be the center of attention all of the time, and like, look, I get it. So if I have to listen to you, can it at least be good? Thank you. With the emergence of democracy in the city-state of Athens in around 460 BC, public speaking became an essential skill for politicians in the assemblies and councils, and even for ordinary citizens in the courts of law. In response, the technique of rhetoric rapidly developed, bringing virtuoso performances and a host of other practical manuals for the layman. While many of these were little more than collections of debaters' tricks, the art of rhetoric held a far deeper purpose. Here, Aristotle establishes the methods of informal reasoning, provides the first aesthetic evaluation of prose style, and offers detailed observations on character and the emotions. We know Leos could do a hand with getting a bit more of control over those. I'll stop now. Hugely influential upon later Western culture, the art of rhetoric is a fascinating consideration of the force of persuasion and sophistry, this word, and the compelling guide to the principles behind words, oh my god, this word, skill. Maybe I should just do a video on like self-improvement according to classics, but this is one, it's very much practical. It's Aristotle. It is difficult, it is hard, but you know, if there's one sign that's going to be smart enough to be able to read this and get the most out of it, it's you, Leos. That's not a challenge. That's not a challenge. Moving on. I apologise that this is very fast-paced. But yeah, I'm an Aries, I don't have that much patience. My darling Virgos, I love Virgos. I have such a soft spot for you guys. A lot of my friends are Virgos. I don't know how you all tolerate me. It's really, really fun. I recommend to you lot Michel de Montaigne. Honestly, because you guys want to live in your little dark academia bubble, and I don't blame you. The penchants for more intellectual, highbrow pursuits. I get it. I get it, I really, really do, and I empathise that you don't get to do that the entire time, because that's not how life works and you can't live in an aesthetic Pinterest board. I'm just saying. But you can read one and feel like one. This belongs in your dark academic, well, to be fair, absolutely all of you do. I'm sure many Virgos are watching this because they were like, ah, is this for me? This is my recommendation for you guys. So much of Montaigne's philosophy is very practical, so much of it is very humanitarian and considered, so I really think that you guys can hack it, frankly. And have the patience enough to read quite a lot of these, get a good sense of his style, but also get the most out of his essays. This is Michel de Montaigne Complete Essays. I also have an absolutely beautiful edition that Folio sent me. I'll link it down below. I need to show you this again because it's beautiful. This was sent to me, but it's gorgeous. Oh, isn't it pretty? This is what I would probably use if I needed to trap a Virgo. I'd be like, put this under the trap and wait for it to arrive. Oh god, it's so beautiful. So yes, I really, really recommend. I know that you guys prize your grades very, very highly, so this is one of those things that you can read, and it's just so good that you don't feel like you're reading something in a way of like, look, you want to read something, you have that stress of not being productive. What is it? Strallaxing? I've seen some people use that as a verb when you're like getting stressed but you're relaxing because you're not getting anything done. This might help you guys. I find Montaigne very calming to read. He's just he's, as we know, one of my absolute favourites, and I think you guys can really hack it. This book is just not a stressful environment. What can I say? Right, let's put you away nicely. Moving on, Libras. You get Voltaire, Treatise on Toleration. Here are some Libra traits. I don't know very many Libras actually, at least not very many of my close friends are, so I think I've got this right for you guys. Yes. Your water bottle?
Drank their edge. A nice edge.
We should think of all human beings as our brothers. What? A Turk as a brother? A Chinaman as a brother? Jews and people from Siam as brothers too? Yes, without doubt. For are we not all children of the same Father and creatures of the same God? A powerful impassioned case for the values of freedom of conscience and religious belief. Voltaire's Treatise on Toleration was written after the Toulouse merchant Jean Calas was falsely accused of murdering his son and executed on the wheel. What the f- In 1762, as it became clear that Calas had been persecuted by an irrational mob for being a Protestant, the Enlightenment philosopher Voltaire began a campaign to vindicate him and his family. The resulting work, a scede against fanaticism and a plea for understanding, is as fresh and urgent today as when it was written. So Libra is actually the Latin word for scale, so Libra sort of sign sort of thingy is scales. Something as diplomatic and as much about fairness and coexistence and cooperation. I think this really would be very good for you guys. It's something that, if anything, is just going to prove you right for like, what, 200 pages? But seeing as like, you know, like your dominant traits are very much being like fair-minded, being social, whatever, I think this is a very good one because this is very much, I guess in a way, like an early social justice and advocacy piece. Yeah, it's true, this is always going to be relevant because humans are dicks. Like, we've been saying this for like, what, 2,000 years? Love thy neighbour? Like, come on, this is just get along and play nice 101, but reading anything from Voltaire is always a treat. He is somebody that I have a lot of Voltaire because his reasoning and his logic is so wonderful to read. He's like one of my absolute favourites, but the thing about him as well is he's an Enlightenment thinker, he's French, he's also cheeky. That's what I find is one of the things that puts me off Rousseau, is purely that Voltaire is so intelligent, so logic, so well argued, but then is also still funny, and that I think is often very difficult to do because some people are just boring. Voltaire is never boring, so I can promise you nothing but joy reading anything he has to say. Obviously this is still an 18th century work. Will it be outdated in some aspects? These things all are, so you always have to take it with a grain of salt and apply your own judgment to it, but I think Libras are the right people to do this. So go forth, children, and learn things, but I don't doubt you're going to bring into your own arguments about what you see as good and just. So here you go. Here's some extended reading for you. Next, one of my personal favourite signs. So many of my like really close friends, best friends, even siblings are Scorpios. I have such a soft spot for all of you. Here are some Scorpio traits, and my suggestion for you lot, Dangerous Liaisons by Laclos. Those of you who have read this will probably there be like, This is full of scheming. This is full of power grabbing, scheming, manipulating, and I love you Scorpios, this is why this is coming from bliss and love. We love a good scheme. I'm an Aries, come on, we love a good scheme. If there's an Aries and a Scorpio together, you should be worried, I'm just saying. For the Marquise de Merteuil and the Vicomte de Valmont, seduction is a game. Kinky motherfuckers. The former lovers relish manipulating others to bring amusement to their jaded existences, while Valmont is determined to succeed in his conquest for the virtuous married woman. Merteuil challenges him to seduce an innocent convent girl who is to be married to her former lover. As their intrigues become increasingly duplicitous, they find their human pawns responding in ways they could not have predicted. The consequences prove to be more serious and deadly than the two conspirators could have guessed. Depicting decadence and moral corruption in pre-revolutionary France, Dangerous Liaisons is one of the most scandalous and controversial novels in 18th century literature. If you have not read this, you are in for a treat. Oh my god. And there are people being like running around and like, I see this a lot on Book Talk, for example, about all of these like passion and schemes and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, yeah, that stuff is good to read, but my god, this is something else. It's a liberty novel. Libertinism is very much this philosophy that I am the bestest and I get to do as it's a white man's philosophy. It's a cis, powerful white man's philosophy. It's that I am the bestest and therefore I can do whatever the fuck I want because there is no heaven and there is no hell. There are going to be no consequences to my actions. That is pretty much the entire premise of libertinism. Greed, gluttony, excess, no matter the expense or consequence of others, because there will be no consequences to you because there is no God. That's libertinism in a nutshell, and that is very much depicted in this. Of course there are consequences, but we will see another very, very famous libertine in this list who also does not give a shit for your consequences. But this is very much about like power and how you can exert power onto others. The idea of power is that you basically, power works in two ways. You either have power to do something or you have power over. So it's power to or power over. This is a fantastic example of the idea of power over. If you want a good film adaptation, Dangerous Liaisons is fantastic, and so is Cruel Intentions. Yeah, that's Dangerous Liaisons. Banging adaptation. It's so, so good. I can't recommend it enough. So yeah, Scorpios, my darlings, I love you very dearly, but you can all be pieces of shit. So there you go. Dangerous Liaisons is definitely for you. I almost hit my water bottle. Sagittarius, you guys are next. For Sagittarius, I recommend the Aeneid. Purely because, and I know some of you find this funny and deeply ironic, I can't find my copy of the Odyssey. I don't know where it is. I've looked everywhere. My brothers haven't nicked it. I can't find it here. I can't find it at home. I can't find it in France. I don't know where my copy of the Odyssey is gone. So that has prompted me to recommend to you the Aeneid. This is Virgil. You want a journey? This is your bloody journey. I was considering recommending Gulliver's Travels, but I think ultimately for a list on classics, I can't do it and not recommend this to you. Here are some Sagittarius traits for those of you who aren't aware. A fellow fire sign. Sagittarius is really all about journey, discovery, and travel. I've known quite a few Sagittarius in my time, and every single one of them are hell-bent on travelling the world and exploring and broadening the horizons. Especially as like a sign that's considered very open-minded, loves discovery, blah blah blah. So yeah, I feel like an epic is absolutely for you guys. It should be the Odyssey. Realistically, it should be the Odyssey. I can't find it, so here we are. After a century of civil strife in Rome and Italy, Virgil wrote the Aeneid to honour the Emperor Augustus by praising Aeneas, Augustus's legendary ancestor. As a patriotic epic imitating Homer, the Aeneid also set out to provide Rome with a literature equal to that of Greece. It tells of Aeneas, the survivor of the sack of Troy, and his 7-year journey to Carthage, where he fell tragically in love with Queen Dido, then to the underworld in the company of Sibyl of Cumae, and finally to Italy, where he founded Rome. It is a story of defeat and exile, love and war, hailed by Tennyson as the stateliest measure ever moulded by the lips of man. Yes, Sagittarius, this is for you. This is also an Odyssey, but really it should have been the Odyssey, but I can't find it, so here we are. I know you guys found that funny, shut up, I don't know where it is. Next we have, I have an absolute soft spot for Capricorns. I don't know how to justify it, wherefore, why, I don't know why this has happened to me. You guys are some of my absolute favourites. But you also absolutely power hungry, kind of workaholic, kind of crazy. So you guys will definitely appreciate and benefit very much from Machiavelli's Prince. Today the Prince is seen as the Bible for realpolitik, read by strategists, businessmen and political animals everywhere as the ultimate guide to gaining or maintaining power in a dangerous world. My parents gave this to me and I genuinely think it was a very, very good thing to have read. This was written by Machiavelli for one of the Medicis. They're a powerful family that ruled over, if I get this wrong, Tuscany, Florence for many years. If I got that wrong, I'd be so stupid. The Prince is a 16th century political treatise written by Italian diplomat and political theorist Niccolo Machiavelli as an instruction guide for new princes and royals. The general theme of The Prince is accepting that the aims of princes, such as glory and survival, can justify the use of immoral means to achieve those ends. It's the idea of, in a way similar to libertinism, the idea that any means to an end is okay as long as you get what you want. So I know Capricorns who love the sound of that. But it is very much about how you gain power, how you exert control, how you, more than anything, retain the power when you have already got it. How you hold on to power. You know the whole idea that you can either rule with love or fear. This is very much explaining both sides to it, but in my opinion does more than anything come down on the fear side, and then more than anything how you maintain that, how you cultivate that. I mean, ruling with fear is a lot less expensive than ruling with love, and also probably a lot more stable. And a lot of it, you'd be surprised how much it still applies now. Like, people really haven't changed that much, so it's one that will always through and through be useful to read. It's not very long, it's not overly difficult. I think I read this when I was maybe 16 or 17. The quote on the cover is, "One must be a fox in order to recognise traps, and a lion to frighten off wolves." Capricorns, I promise you, knowing you guys cannot go far wrong with this. Next, Aquarius. Here are some Aquarius traits. Aquarius, I present with you Sade's Justine. That's right, kinky motherfuckers, you get Sade. The namesake of sadism. Bessie's been putting the S in BDSM for the last 300 years. What am I pulling that up with? I think you guys are the ones that can actually handle this. I know my long-standing policy is that I do not technically recommend Sade to anybody, but if I have to, it would be Aquarius's. You guys are an air sign, you guys are very, very intellectual, so I think the balance of the fact that this is very much, as I've said many times, this is philosophy, this is heavy, hardcore philosophy, then heavy, hardcore BDSM. To be able to hack that constant switching, because it's very much passage of philosophy, which is often Justine arguing with somebody, so this is often taking the form of an argument, and then lots of porn. Nuns get a lot of porn, a lot of really weird kinky shit in here, like, not to kink shame, ever, but you need a certain kind of mental flexibility to be able to go from one to another. This took me a very long time to read, and at one point I put it down and didn't pick it up again for another year because it's just not for the faint of heart and it's just not for everyone. If you consider yourself the kind of person who has a stomach for it though, you stand to learn a lot because of how Sade pushes the boundaries of what we consider is and isn't okay, and because he's the kind of person who takes it that far, you have an opportunity to mentally explore what that actually is and what that looks like, and all the other things along the way. I have become a whore through kindness and a libertine through virtue. Orphaned and penniless at the age of 12, the beautiful and devout Justine embarks on her remarkable odyssey. Her steadfast faith and naive trust in everyone she meets destines her from the outset for sexual exploitation and martyrdom. The unending catalogue of disasters that befall her, during which she is subjected to any number of perverse practices, illustrates Sade's belief in the primacy of nature over civilization. Virtue is no match for vice, and as criminality and violence triumph, Justine is doomed to suffer. Sade's writings have become a byword for transgression and obscenity, and the logical amorality of his philosophy still has the power to shock. By overturning social, religious, and political norms, he puts under scrutiny conventional ideas of justice, power, life, and death. Justine is a ferocious physical and intellectual assault on the absolute notions of good and evil, and as such, one of the earliest literary manifestos for atheism. Sade's whole point, as I already said, with libertinism is that the whole point is that there is no God. If you had a God, why are all of these awful things allowed to happen to somebody who is so virtuous? It's really one of the most influential things that I have ever read. Like one of the most influential things that not that many people have read. But genuinely, if you can hack it, can't recommend it enough, which is why I think, in my experience, Aquarius, you guys can deal with it. And again, kinky motherfuckers, but that's not the point. Let's move on. And very, very finally, Pisces. I'm sure you all skipped ahead to this anyway, but that's okay. Just go back and watch the rest of the video. I see you. For Pisces, here are some of your traits. But just like Cancer, you guys have a lot of feelings, okay? You guys have a lot of emotions and feelings. I should know my fucking Venus is in Pisces. That's why I recommend to you Keats. This is one of my more recent purchases, and it's Keats' complete poetry. You can find a lot of his most famous poems online, but poor thing, a lot of horrible things happened to him. He really had what are they called? Annus Horribilis, which is like an awful year where everything seems to go wrong, and he very tragically did die, I think at 24, 25. So those of you who are in your early 20s, recommend this because it's the same kind of hits. Well, not really, because you can't draw direct comparisons between like someone who lived like now and a few hundred years ago, but like it's still very youthful. It's a very youthful, very capital R romantic depiction of love and of grief. And it is also very, very beautifully written, so I cannot recommend it enough in terms of the way that it will move you. If it doesn't move you, you're probably a Capricorn, so really recommend it to Pisces. You'll get the most out of it in terms of like a good opportunity and reasonable reason for emotional release and tears, which is, as we all know, is in itself an absolute catharsis. Despite his tragically short life, Keats, a self-confessed rebel angel, endures for many as a personification of the Romantic age. While contemporary critics mocked him as a Cockney poet and an uneducated lower-class apothecary who aspired to poetry, subsequent generations began to see and appreciate both the rich and impassioned sensuousness and the love of beauty and liberty that pervade his work. Does that sound like Pisces? I think so. From Endymion and Hyperion to Eve of St. Anges, La Belle Dame sans Merci and the Odes, this collection, which presents Keats' oeuvre in chronological order, displays his rapid poetic growth and the development of his psychological and spiritual beliefs, and the voluptuous silken nature of his verse. I read quite a few of these, and it's honestly glorious. His mastery of language is so just acute, and you can't ignore it. There aren't words for it. It's beautiful, and it's one of the things that's brought me back to reading poetry. It's something that I haven't done for a very long time, and you always feel very forced to do it. It's something you're like made to study as part of a curriculum. But poetry is obviously something that can be outright enjoyed through and through. Like, there's a reason these things got written in the first place. It wasn't just to go straight into a classroom and bore you to tears. As a GCSE, you're made to study Carol Ann Duffy, and you're just there like, why am I doing this? Keats is someone who has certainly restored my faith both in the Romantics and, well, let's be honest, that never really wavered. I secretly love them even though I love to hate them. Restored my faith in poetry, especially something with things that I have been taught. So Pisces, I highly, highly recommend. I promise you'll really, really like it. It's an excuse for the tears, which we know are being pent up in their own ways. So there we have it. These are my classics recommendations as per your zodiac sign. If you think these are bang on, tell me. My ego wants to hear it. Obviously it does. If you didn't, I don't want to know. Shut up. Or if you have your own list or your own recommendations for your star sign or a star sign that you know really well, absolutely leave it in the comments down below. Yes? I'm almost done with my video. Can you please shut the door?
What's the video about?
I already told you.
About gardening?
Yeah. Louis! Either way, I hope you guys have enjoyed these suggestions. You can find me on my socials. Everything is at Sarcastic Fish, or on Goodreads. I am also just Emma Angeline. As ever, thank you very, very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.